In the small village of Papo, nestled in the heart of West Africa, lived a young woman named Amma. Amma was a kind and gentle soul, loved by all who knew her. She was a devoted mother to her 6 children, and her husband Kofi was a hard-working farmer who provided for their family. The village of Bako was a small, close-knit community where everyone knew and looked out for one another. The villagers lived simple lives, farming the land and trading goods at the local market. Amma and her family lived in a small mud hut on the outskirts of the village, surrounded by lush green fields and dense forests. Amma's days were filled with the usual tasks of a village wife and mother. She spent her mornings tending to the family's farm, weeding and watering the crops, and harvesting the fruits of their labor. Sitting with her family, sharing stories and laughter, and enjoying each other's company. But despite the peaceful and idyllic life they live, Amma's family was not immune to the challenges and hardships that faced many families in the village. Kofi's income as a farmer was unpredictable, and there were times when the family went hungry. Amma's children often fell ill, and the family had to rely on the village healer for treatment. And Amma herself struggled to balance the demands of caring for her family with the need to contribute to the family's income. But one day, disaster struck. Kofi fell ill and passed away, leaving Amma to care for the 6 children alone. Amma was devastated, but she was determined to provide for her children. She worked tirelessly, farming the land and selling goods at the market. But despite her best efforts, Amma found it impossible to make ends meet. The family's farm, which had once been thriving, began to fall into disrepair. The crops withered and died, and the family's livestock fell ill. Amma's children, who had once been happy and healthy, began to suffer. They went hungry and their clothes tattered and worn out. Amma was at a loss for what to do. She had never been on her own before, and she didn't know how to provide for her children without Kofi's help. She felt overwhelmed and alone, and she didn't know where to turn. As the months went by, Amma began increasingly desperate. She was unable to feed her children, and they were beginning to suffer. They knew that she had to do something, but she didn't know what. One day, as she was sitting in her hut, feeling hopeless and defeated, Amma made a decision. She would leave her children in the care of her elderly mother and set out to find work in the city. It was a difficult decision, but Amma felt like she had no other choice. Amma's mother, who had always been a source of comfort and support, was shocked and saddened by Amma's decision. She begged Amma to reconsider, to find another way to provide for her children. But Amma's mind was made up. She knew that she had to do what was best for her children, even if it meant leaving them behind. Amma traveled for days, facing many challenges along the way. She encountered harsh weather conditions, wild animals, and even hostile strangers, but she persevered, driven by her determination to provide for her children. As she walked, Amma thought about her children and the life they had left behind. She thought about the small mud hut they had called home, the farm they had worked together, and the laughter they had shared. She knew a pang of sadness and regret, but she pushed on, knowing that she had to keep moving forward. After many days of travel, Amma finally arrived in the city. She was struck by the noise, the crowds, and the towering buildings. She had never seen anything like it before. Amma felt a sense of wonder and awe, but also a sense of fear and uncertainty. Amma found work as a maid in a wealthy household. She worked long hours cleaning and cooking for the family. She was paid a small wage, but it was enough to send some money back to her children. Amma's life in the city was different from her life in the village. She had to adapt to a new way with new customers and new rules. She had to learn to navigate the crowded streets and markets and to find her way around the city. Despite the challenges, Amma was determined to make a new life for herself in the city. She worked hard, saved her money, and sent it back to her children. She knew that she had made the right decision, even though it had been a difficult one. Back in the village, Amma's children were struggling to cope without their mother. The eldest child, Kweku, took on the responsibility of caring for his younger siblings. He worked hard to farm the land and provided for the family. But it was a busy burden for one so young. The other children missed their mother dearly. They felt lost and alone, and they didn't know how to manage without Amma's guidance and support. They struggled to do their chores and take care of themselves, and they often were hungry. Despite the challenges, the children persevered. They worked together to take care of themselves and their home. And they waited patiently for their mother's return. They knew that Amma would come back to them one day, and they held on to that hope with all their might. Years passed, and Amma's children grew up without their mother. Kweku became a strong and capable young man, but he never forgot the pain of being abandoned by his mother. The other children struggled to come to terms with their mother's decision to leave them. Despite the challenges, the children persevered. They worked hard to farm the land and provide for themselves. and they waited patiently for their mother's return. They knew that Amma would come back to them one day, and they held on to that. They held on to that hope with all their might. Amma too struggled to come to terms with her decision to leave her children. She was haunted by the memories of their tear-stained faces and the pain she had caused them. She knew that she had made a terrible mistake and she longed to make amends. As the years passed, Amma's regret only deepened. She thought about her children every day, wondering how they were doing and if they were happy. She knew she had missed out on so much of their lives and she was determined to make it right. One day, after many years of separation, Amma returned to her village. She was nervous and unsure of how her children would receive her. But as she approached her family's house, she saw Kweku standing in the doorway, a look of surprise and wonder on his face. Amma's heart swelled with emotion as she saw her children for the first time in years. She was taken aback by how much they had grown and changed. She felt a mix of emotions, joy, sadness, regret, and love. Amma's children were shocked and emotional as they reunited with their mother. There were tears of joy and sadness, and many difficult conversations to be had. But as they sat together under the shade of a mango tree, Amma's children began to forgive their mother and welcome her back into their lives. Amma was grateful for her children's forgiveness and understanding. She knew that she had made mistakes, but she was determined to make it right. She spent the rest of her days making amends with her children and rebuilding their relationships. And as they sat together, watching the sun set over the fields, Amma knew that she had finally found redemption and a second chance to be a mother to her loved children. Thanks for listening to my stories. Please like, share, and subscribe to my channel for more interesting videos.